Noorie wakes up to the sound of a huge storm blowing. She wakes up in a jolt. She looks around. She can't recognize anything around her. She walks past the neighborhood. There is not a single tree. Everyone looks the same. They are all wearing the same clothes. She can hear sounds of drones, bulldozers, and wailing sirens at a distance. Noorie gets scared and tries to escape, but the walls feel like they're closing in on her. She runs away on a long journey across rivers, valleys, deserts, forests, and the insides of city bylanes. Along her way, she meets musicians who tell her stories and sing her songs. Listening to them, she discovers new maps and routes to find a sense of belonging. Adventures of Noorie is a podcast series tracing her travels with music, memory, and identity. Noorie in search of Gorkhaland.
After 2 long hours of waiting, the Darjeeling mail finally pulls into the station. I settle down on my seat. I'm really hungry. I open up my backpack looking for a snack, but there isn't anything. Just then, my co-passengers come into the coach. One berth has a large family, and on the other berth, there is a boy who looks somewhat my age, who's carrying a violin. As the train begins to move, the family pulls out a tiffin dabba with yummy-looking kachori, puri, aloo dum. The entire cabin is filled with the smell of mustard oil. I really want to ask them for a small bite, but I'm feeling shy, so I look out of the window. As the train begins to pick up speed, the trees outside become like small blurs. I don't know when I fall asleep, but when I wake up, there are raindrops hitting my face. Outside the window, there are miles and miles and miles of paddy fields. Just then, I hear a strange sound from the berth opposite. I look around and realize that the boy is tuning his violin. He seems to be lost inside a deep thought. He begins to play, and the song fills me with a strange yearning. Everyone in the coach gets up at once and begins pushing and shoving to get out. But the boy remains where he is, still holding his violin. Excuse me, can you tell me what you were playing? It's a song I wrote about the Teesta River. As we walked out of the station together, he tells me that he's part of a band called Gauley Bhai and lives in Kalimpong, a few kilometers above the Teesta. There used to be river dolphins and lush forests in this area, but all of that was before the dam. Now the river no longer flows the way she used to. Can you take me there? We get into a shared taxi that drops us off at the Teesta bridge. I stand with him, and both of us are staring down at the river flowing by. It looks brown and sluggish. On either side, there are bulldozers digging up sand. Can you tell me more about the song you wrote?
बगरमा बसी चिच्चाइ प्रतिमा यही गाउँ यही ठाउँ त्याग मेरो माया बुनी षड्यन्त्र फुकी पुत्लामै सास जोगिएर हेरी बस जाग्यो हाम्रो ज्ञान टिस्टाकै बगरमा बसी चिच्चाइ प्रतिमा यही गाउँ यही ठाउँ त्याग मेरो माया छाई कालो छाया गुन्ज्यो हाँसी पहाडमा रोक्यो खोला सुक्यो हावा भाग्यो पशु प्राणी माछा यही गाउँमा यही बनैमा धुली सारा यो जीवन भिजेन के माया टिस्टाकै बगरमा बसी
That song that I was just playing is called Sariyantra. Saryantra, the word means scheming, or like larger plans of that sort. And the song is from it's a new song that we've written, and it's for our upcoming album.
What is the song about?
The song, when I sing it, it takes me way back to like couple of years ago, back in 2016, where I found myself standing on the National Highway, NH10 it's called now. It's actually the highway that runs alongside a river called Teesta, which is where I come from back home in Kalimpong and Darjeeling. And Teesta actually since ancient times has been a part of the Silk Route, and it's a very important geographical location because it connects the rest of India with the chicken. It's called the chicken neck, with the rest of the northeast and Sikkim and all. And then back in 2016 when I was standing on the river, it had been there was when large infrastructural projects like hydro dams and railways were just coming into the landscape, and then because it was more or less a jungle till then, and then it was a big surprise, I think, for people who were from there, because suddenly these things had come in and the landscape was changing very rapidly.
This is in 2016?
This is back in 2016. And then that particular day, I was in a small village along the highway. Like the highway is made up like that. Like you start off from Siliguri and then you go through these small, colorful villages which have got clusters of houses alongside the highway. And they sell like, tea and snacks and food and alcohol. So I was in one of those places called 29th Mile. And 29th Mile had been marked off the map. Like they had cancelled it off. And that place had been kind of sacrificed because the river had expanded and the water was already below the road under the ground. So they were breaking houses.
So marked off by who?
Marked off by the authorities, let's call it for now. And then, so because of that, the authorities that morning 4 o'clock had come with bulldozers and police and media to kind of break down the houses on the side of the road that was closer towards the river, because it was being deemed dangerous to live, and they were forcibly evicting people. So that few hours actually really stayed with me for like years after that, and that was also the beginning of my personal work that I work back home. And then, so the song is kind of written about that. It's written about that day, certain things that people had said, certain things that I saw, certain things that we as a community fear perhaps, and it tries to reflect that state of mind.
Can you sing us a little bit from the song? Or even say it if it's, yeah.
It's actually like a rap kind of part, but I'll sing it softly right now, because actually it's very like strong and powerful in the song. I'll sing you the last 3 stanzas of that particular part, and it goes like, Be ready, U-turn लगाए लिस्पोसित फर्के सबै न्युजको कर्मचारी
टिस्टामा बग्यो पानी चल्यो ट्राफिक तल माथि सिलिङवाला भत्की छ र माझ बडा बसी चुपचाप काममा लागि माटो छ्यापल भोकी सधैँ गर्ने काममा छैन यसमा साह्रो केही इटा रड छाना सिमेन्ट सिपिङ गरी डाटा लोड गर्दा घरको बाजे खाली मेमोरी बनाउने बिजुली माटको जगमा मन्छन् बडा आँखामै हेरी भन त भाइ पाउँछ किन्नु मान्छेको जिन्दगानी भन्थ्यो सबलाई हाम्रो कता लिन्छ जिम्मेदारी हट्नेहरू हटिहाले बर्खा महिना अघि निन्द्रै नलाग्ने पर्छ मुसलधार पानी जिनिस पिसिरे भन्छ तिमीहरू थापिहाल नमान्नेहरूलाई खोलै भन्छ तिमीहरू हटिहाल आन्दोलनकारी जानबाट फर्किआउँछ भुक राति हाम्रो गाउँकै सडक तेरो सम्पत्ति माथि भटको साले तेरै ड्याम बत्ती बोल्बी जुनी यहीँ त साडीमाथि नयाँ घर बनाउँछु घरको तल गोदाम बनाइ बेलचा थुपार्छु खनी पहिरोबाट खोताली निकाल्छु यसैको टिस्टा लाइनको सत्य हजुरलाई सम्झाउँछु
Wow.
So it means be ready, right? U-turn lagai, meaning that be ready. The police, the media, they put off a U-turn and they left this place. And as soon as they left, then the water of the Teesta river, which had stopped moving for a while, started to flow again. And with that flow of the river, so did the traffic also start to flow along the highway, right? And amongst that, in broken rubbles of like ceiling and walls and, concrete, broken concrete, this uncle stands there. And he stands there with a chisel and a hammer, which is not a big deal because that's what he does every day. Every day he breaks rocks and stones because Teesta had mines and stone quarries. So he's sitting there and then he chips away at all the cement from the bricks, all the cement from the metal, from the rods, from the tin sheets, from wood planks. He chips all of it off, and then whatever is cleaned up, he stacks up in piles. And then they load all these stacks of bricks, wood, metal, tin sheets onto a truck, a Tata truck, and then they take it away. And when they take it away, all that is left of home is just memories and that pile of rubble on that truck, right? And then it says again, be ready, the ones who make electricity. And this is what that uncle, this is a true story because that uncle actually told me that. I was standing there just looking at them and he called me and he said, you know what? He said, and then this is what in the song also says. He said, he looks at me in my eyes and then he says, listen brother, can you tell me, can you really buy people's lives like this? Right? And then he says, go and tell everybody my story. I will take the responsibility. That's what he says, and that's what's there in the song also. And then he says, whoever could leave already left by now. And like at night, like it rains so hard that you can't even sleep, right? And NHPC keeps telling everybody to accept like compensation, like you take it right now only. And whoever doesn't agree, the river tells them, people, you leave immediately, you leave. The river's always telling them, right?
The river's giving the warning.
Yeah, and then it says again, be ready. Andolan jari hai, like Andolan is still going on because we've had like so many Andolans back in our past, if you look at it in our region. And it says the Andolan still going on, and every night, right, ghosts return from the grave. Like ghosts, I guess it refers to all the people who die in the Andolan, right? Because we have had so much violence in our area, and whoever's died and that revolution is going on, they come back at night, the ghosts. The ghosts come at night and then they curse. They curse these like concrete buildings, these highways, these walls, the electricity that's being made, these electricity poles, and then they curse everything so that it breaks away, and then whoever is building wealth out of destroying this place, that they lose everything, right? And then the ghost says, I will take all these ghosts, I say here, because like when everything is taken away from people, I think you become like a shell, like a ghost of something. So then that ghost says that, see, I will take these bricks, I'll collect every brick from here and I'll take it above this hill and I'll make a new house. And in that new house, I'll make a go down. And in the go down, I will store spades. And with those spades, I will dig the landslide every day. I'll dig and dig and dig. And I'll excavate all these stories from Teesta that people have forgotten. And I'll remind you of it. That's what the song says.
The ghost is a really powerful metaphor. And just when you're speaking, I'm just thinking that there's kind of a sense of something that's been forgotten or unheard or denied almost in what you're describing. So is that kind of an emotion that's there very strongly in your music and your writing?
I think so. I think like actually I must perhaps in some way that forms like an underlying ethos and underlying pathos throughout my writing, perhaps. Like this sense of a sense of a loss, a sense of perennial intergenerational loss is, I think, a lot of my writing kind of holds. And I don't know, as a musician, as an artist, personally, like I think this kind of forms the center of my work, perhaps, like in many ways, because even politically, like I was trying to, like what I think is that one can't separate the politics of a person. At least for me, I can't, because for me, like politics is not like an external thing that lies somewhere. It's not like a bird that's flying in the sky, but it's something like my own personal fight. Like I myself am affected by it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, just like England, Gorkhaland. चेलीको मन 10 धारा नरुभे आमा पाउँदैनौ माइतीको माया 10 धारा नरुभे आमा फर्किँदैन चेलीको मन 10 धारा नरुभे आमा पाउँदैनौ माइतीको माया घरकै नानी माया मारे त्यागे छ ममता र प्रीति घरकै बासी गति छाडी लागे छ लालचको बानी.
What is it that moved you to make music?
I think music was like always a part of me that way. I think I can speak for the rest of my band also. I think for us, luckily, we must be grateful and have gratitude for it. We were all born into like music that way. Like I started learning how to play the violin because my parents forced me. My younger brother Anudwatt, who plays the bass, he learned how to sing first because they forced him to it. But then now I sing and he plays bass. I think similarly for Sidhant, in his family, though, his grandmother is a famous dance teacher, is very respected dance and music teacher in our village. We used to all call her teacher. And then Joe's family also is a similar thing where he comes from like a musical background and there's music always around. But then even far from more than all of that, I think now when we do it, I think it gives us a sense of, I don't know, contentment. It's very cliche to say, but I think it is really kind of like that.
And are all of you from the same place?
3 of us are from. I mean, me and my younger brother and Sidhant, I told you, from the same village basically. But Joe is from Kerala, in Kozhikode in Kerala.
Oh, okay. So how did that meeting happen between the 4 of you?
It was 4 of us, I think we really come together to kind of, we were like, there's a thing like made for each other. I think it was like that for us. I think till we, like, Anudwatt, me and Sidhant have always known each other, but we never really played together or, anything like that. But Sidhant and Anudwatt have been playing together ever since they were in school, ever since they were children, I think. They grew up together in that sense. And I had left Bangalore for like a while back then back in 2015 because I was feeling very disillusioned, and there was a lot of turmoil happening back home. And then I always wanted to, I think, go back to it, move away from whatever, just corporate work and commercial work into working in my own place and narratives. So then I had gone back after that. That is when I think Anudwatt and Sidhant in Bangalore started playing together. At that same time, Anudwatt was working in a studio and they bumped into Joe over a recording. And I think the next day, Anudwatt quit his job and was always at Joe's house jamming forever. Then I think Sidhant was also invited. They also started jamming. Then I also went. And then I think when 4 of us started jamming,
something clicked.
Like initially it was just something personally we were doing, because it was really giving us a lot of, it was giving a lot of personal strength and like something to hold on to, something to, care for and do in your life. And then we had certain friends like who heard us, and then they were like, it's really something, they told us. They called us to play in like a festival. Then we played in like a festival called I Live Here in Bangalore, long time back. I still remember till that day, we had no ideas of being a musical performance that way. But after that show, we reached home in the studio, we kept our instruments and we were like, okay, now it is a band.
And what is your band called?
We are called the Gauley Bhai.
Gauley Bhai means?
Gauley Bhai meaning like from your community, like, from your gaon, or like belonging to this place. And the idea was that I think as an Indian Nepali, one of the main things is that you are called a foreigner. You are not, like you deal with this identity crisis kind of thing where actually you are ethnically so-and-so, you're Nepali, you're that region here and there. Indian political boundaries are have blurry stories around it. So then I think the problem with the Indian Nepalis that normally that was there when I was growing up was that if you go to India, like the mainland, then they'll be like, okay, you're a foreigner, you're not really Indian, so-and-so, etc. So for me, politically, in one of my ways, it was important for me to live outside, like Bangalore, which was a city, and then sing in Nepali that way, to kind of also show a presence in that way. Today we play for non-Nepali audiences actually throughout the country, and that I feel speaks to something. In that same way, the idea was that we keep moving from place to place, and the sense of belongingness and identity keeps changing and keeps growing. Today I do feel a belongingness here in Bangalore. So that way Gauley Bhai was a name that we kind of took upon us, is that we can keep moving and still keep belonging to different places, and that sense of belonging keeps growing. So that way, Gauley Bhai.
So all these different movements and all these migrations, how does that, what does that do to your music?
I think our music is made with that. Like, I think that is the fundamental concept, actually. Migration, I think, is where some kind of a thought process starts for us, because, as you said, we ourselves are immigrants here. And then what happens with migration along the side, I think, is that you imbibe a lot of things that you hear and see. Like, from food to rituals to religion to culture, and similarly so for music. So that way, I think, like, in a sense, if thematically also, if you look at our first album, Joro, I think a lot of it is centered about being in this in-between kind of a situation, in between two geographies that are really far away from each other. And like, both becomes like a thing, like when you go home, when you go to one place, I won't say home, when you go to place A, you constantly feel a longingness of this place B, which is your home. And when you are in place B, you constantly feel this longingness for place A, which is your home. So you have homes in both places, but you are also homeless in both places. Like, it's like once you migrate, I think once you leave, coming back is never the same. So I think Joro moves in this kind of a space, in this kind of a world where, but in between this, we are looking at other things like ideas of love, ideas of loss, ideas of grieving, ideas of political disillusionment.
शीतल पारे चरीमा चरी थुपरी उडी आँखामा यो शीतल पारे चरीमा चरी थुपरी उडी आँखामा यो शीतल पारे चरीमा चरी थुपरी उडी आँखामा यो शीतल पारे चरीमा चरी थुपरी उडी बिर्सेको मायालाई सम्झी रुदैछ चरी साँझै पछि आँखामा यो शीतल पारे चरीमा चरी थुपरी उडी मनए माथि ढुङ्गा राखी लागे म परदेश डाँडै काटे आँखामा यो शीतल पारे चरीमा चरी थुपरी उडी.
The day I left home, I think the world opened up to me, because I had grown up for 18 years in like a very small place. I had grown up in a very small place, and literally even internet was rare, When I came to Bangalore the first time, I hadn't even discovered YouTube. So then I think after coming to Bangalore, the world also opened up to me. I heard like many different kinds of music, different genres, different artists, from different languages, different cultures, different parts of the world. So in that sense, I think that became like a real mind opener. And then over the years of growing up in Bangalore, I think I picked up liking and listening to different kinds of music. And obviously all of them became influences for me. And then today, I think when we play, and I think this is the same story for all of us, because all of us have come from that same very like remote, isolated places, including Joe from Kozhikode, you know, right? So I think it's the same for all of us in that way. And then we've all discovered like this multiple kinds of music, and that has influenced us from R&B to blues to funk to other kind of ethnic music that comes from Ethiopia or from Mali or from Nigeria, from hip hop to. So then that way, our music is literally a reflection of all of these different things that we've kind of, you know, experienced in our life, from different kinds of music to our own thematic roots, our stories, our narratives, and an amalgamation of all of that, I think, is what is Gauley Bhai that way. I think Gauley Bhai, we like, in a way, like we like to say that it is like a representation of, I think if I have to say that, okay, today, what would you like Gauley Bhai to really be, idea-wise? I think I would like it to be a contemporary representation of some kind of a reality of the subcontinent. For people who live there, who come from different parts, who are existing now in cities and like, you know.
Like a story of migration in a way also.
Yeah, it is. Or reflecting about home from some other kind of a place.
So where do you draw from when it comes to a process of writing or making music? Where does your mind or heart go?
As I was saying, the political and personal for me is kind of not separable. When I think of something politically, attached to it is the human behind it, right? Because I think the problem, what I see as a problem in a lot of discourses, is that when we talk about politics, normally I hear a very impersonal relationship to that. Like it is more of an ideological stance, or like it's based on like, you know, statistical figures, like opinions, like of larger things. You're talking about the like things which are much larger than you, and sometimes I have this doubt.
Can you give me an example from one of your songs of how, like maybe, or from your writing about how these two come together for you?
Like the second album for me, I think lyrically at least, is a complete dedication to this region of space of Teesta. I've been actually working on that place for the last 6-7 years. I've been doing different kinds of research, and so far it's only indirectly kind of come up in my work. But I think now this year, because also the situation today, if you look at Teesta, that situation that started back in the day when I was describing you that incident for Sadiyantra, 2016, now in 2024, that entire highway of Teesta is drowning actually, and the highway is technically right now closed. You know, there are villages, there are like, I think around 22,000 people who are being affected as of today. And then the political thing is that it's not even acknowledged. Like the government only acknowledges damages in Sikkim or damages that may happen down south in the plains of Bengal, starting from Jalpaiguri. But that small part, which is my place, is actually just left out of in like any kind of public conversation. So I think my work, this time I felt motivated to kind of locate then my narrative space in that river there. But then it comes up in many ways, because like rather than just talking about the roads or the losses, when we look at it, it's usually in statistics and numbers about, in terms of money. But we're not looking at like, because the idea was that like when I sing Sadiyantra on stage, what I say is that, see, the idea of losing a home is not just about losing a flat or a house or like of the physicality of the property. It's also that you lose your way of life around it, how you live, what you do to earn your money, what you grow around you, who you meet, what you do for leisure. Everything goes. Everything you know as
The
of now
entire
goes. So there is nothing to inherit, or there's nothing to pass on to your generations anymore. A friend of mine back there from home told me that what to do, but there is nothing to pass on to our kids anymore. Whatever we knew of what to do with this river, there's nothing that you can do anymore like that with it. And now what is there, now what the kids will inherit is labor work, right? Like you have to be a laborer in these huge sites. So then I think what happens is like the state of mind of a person is affected the most. So in my songs in the second album, for example, there is a song called Dada Pahara.
पाहाडलाई भारी फलमा त्यसमाथि रोडा बलुवा सिमेन्टले बाँधी जमान घरमा पर्ख पालिया छ पहाबीच कलिला प्राण घरमा बजाइ मधुर गीत हत्या गरी आफ्नै हात झुन्डी मुरी बिचाराले तर्साउँछ टाढा पहाड भिरभिरतिर टाढा पहाड भिरभिरतिर टाढा पहाड भिरभिरतिर टाढा पहाड भिरभिरतिर हाइवेमै भूतकै कहानी डर होइन सुन आँसु झर्छ नि सोध्छन् यहाँ किन हल्छे कि रेलगोली क्या सडक सवारी रुन्छी केटी प्रेमी भर्खर कि हरेक साँझ बिहान बेलुकी सोच चिन्तामै किन छाडी तर उसलाई उत्तरमा तर्साउँछ आउन तिमी टाढा पहाड भिरभिरतिर टाढा पहाड भिरभिरतिर
It's a collection of 3 stories. One about a teenager who listens to music, but then commits suicide and becomes a ghost. The second story is about his lover, who is haunted by the ghost and keeps asking for a reason as to why the kid committed suicide. And the third is about the girl and her mother remembering another one of their loved ones while they see a rainbow when they work in the construction site. And they take a break and they go home. So in this way, so that is one song. To describe another, there is a story about a golden bird who who lives in this really rich and leisurely place, which is in the story these golden fields. And one day the fields are dry, and like the bird the bird is missing his friends, and then the bird is kind of stressed out in that way. And then but then there is a snake, a black snake that comes out on those full moon nights and comes to the golden bird and starts asking for debt. Right? This golden bird can't pay the debt because the fields have dried up, and now the golden bird has to labor work. And because of doing labor work for years, the golden bird has now become poor. And so then there is this kind of tension between them.
Between the bird and the snake.
Yeah, and then the bird kind of flies off, leaving us people with like that landscape, this debt to pay. And then the entire landscape starts crumbling off slowly in the song. Another perhaps is of this one sister-in-law that I used to know, like a friend basically from back home. And then there's a monsoon storm one day, and then that night, along with the flood and the house and everything, this sister-in-law's heart is also swept away by the river. So she kind of wakes up in the hospital with this desire to go out with her friends and, like leave everything behind and just run away. And then as she does that, there's a certain point in which she's unable to herself to go ahead, because she has things that keep tying her back to this place. So she tells her other friends, her younger sisters, to go ahead instead of her and not look back. So that way, I think there are these kind of songs which, I don't know if you get what I mean, but then it's about a reconciliation with loss. It's about confronting that sense of loss and what you lose in life.
And the place is really kind of a central character. It comes across like that.
Yeah.
There's people, but there's also the place itself. Because
I think when you say a landscape, normally we just think of like things in a photo, right? It's far away. It's like vast expanses of land. But what we don't see is that actually, if you really zoom in, there will be people there in that photograph. If you really zoom in like 45x, really zoom in, you will see that actually there'll always be some kind of like people there. And I think my songs talk about those stories, not just of the land, but of the people who live in the land.
And some of these metaphors that you draw on, like the bird, the snake, the river, this imagery, where does it come to you from? What do you draw on? Like, are there musical influences that you had that were of a similar kind? And how do you know to talk? Like, why is it that the snake becomes the debt collector or the bird becomes the worker or then the river? So where do these kind of metaphors come from?
I think, I think if you take a Nepali folk music, I'm highly influenced by. Obviously, that was one of my largest influences. Because also I was looking to find a new way of representing the Nepali, whatever, the sound, you can say, or not chak that. Actually, not a Nepali sound, but then we want to find our own sound. Yeah. Let's say that comes from the subcontinent. As Gauley Bhai, right? And since I am Nepali, I draw from my own background and context. This may not necessarily be true for all the members in the band. But then me personally, since I'm so influenced by Nepali music, I think I've learned, there's this one very interesting thing that really inspires me, in which in Nepali music, often what you find is that there are these stories that are described in the songs. And the stories and this kind of culture comes from this group called the Gandharvas, who are actually a nomadic group. You know, they travel across throughout the year, apart from some 1 week where they go home for like one party festival where they party for 3 days, 4 days. Apart from that, I think they are usually just on the road and they go from house to house. So I remember even as a child, like seeing these characters come, and we would be waiting actually for these older people who usually be accompanied by younger children to come, and they'll sing you songs. And then the songs they would sing would be these different stories from that normally they would have gathered in their travels only. So they would write it as they move along. And then yeah, and they would have simply just described whatever they would have seen. I think in the older days, perhaps even news of fallen kings and new kings and like royalty, marriages, and all these kind of things would also be, would find their way into other public knowledge through these songs. Also during the time of when the British Army was taking like Gorkha people to fight wars during the Second World War, First World War, the number of people who were dying, or the Maoist movements in Nepal, or the Gorkha Andolan like that happened in our place where so many people died on some particular day, all these massacres, or even like a widow who's living by herself, or like a girl whose husband has gone away to some foreign land to work for like decades now, or parents who've lost their child in the war. They're just living by themselves. They would bring like these different stories, or these super urban people who like, who kids are not studying. They're all going to disco.
So it's a lament also.
To, like these different things. So these guys, it's basically a social commentary of different sorts, and they capture and collect these different stories in that song. So I think this nature is what I also try and imbibe. So, because I'm also bored by this thing of the song always being in this I kind of a tone where we are always like, I am feeling sad, or I miss you, or this thing. Instead, I think sometimes I also try and curate these stories that represent, what perhaps we feel only inside.
Can you sing me a Gandharva song that you feel inspired by or close to? Whichever one that's inspired you in your writing.
सासुकी छोरी नि भोकाली मोरी कठैनी बरी नि यस्तै चाल परी कर्णाली भेरी सम्झुँदाखेरि मन आउँछ कोरी कसकी यौ छोरी मुराली चरी भोकाली मोरी को देख्छ वेदना हो चरा निरा चरी हो मेरा डाफो को देख्छ वेदना हो हिमाचुलीका 18 काठ हिमाचुलीका 18 काठ डाफिकी आमाले जन्म पाइनी आहा जन्म पाइ हो बाँसका झिजा र खरुका मन्टा पातीका झिजा भाँचेर ल्याइछ करप र किरिप झरप र झिरिप झिजा फुभाची
मिर्हा चरिता हो मेरो दाफा लागुनी बैसाको हो चरा तम्हा रूपको लागुनी दाफा क्या सुन जल्यो हिमाचुलीका 18 काठ
हिमाचुलीको 18 काठा डाफेकी आमाले कतै नबरा जन्म पाइनी जन्म पाइ हो बाँसका झिजा र खडका मन्टा पातीका झिजा भचाएर लाइछ करप र किरिप र झरप र झिरिप झिजा पो भाँचिनी बाँसका रनी यो पत्थरुमा सानोमा सानो भुरुङ्ग परेको चेउठोमा चेउठो चेउठोमा चेउठो गहिरोमा गहिरो भनक्क भन्क्यो छनक्क छन्केको रनक्क रन्केको टिमिकै परेको गुड पनि लगाई हो चरा मिर्हा चरी भनेर दाफ गुड पनि लगाई हो.
Which, like, whose Nepali is it? Like, what do you try and capture when you write? Because there would be many different kinds of Nepalis or vocabularies used by different people.
I think the Nepali I use is basically a Nepali that developed in Darjeeling and Kalimpong because of the plantation cultures there. I think in Nepal, actually, if you look at it socially, it's very different because like each clan, each dialect, each like community is very segregated. They marry within themselves and all. But I think just like India, just like the rest of India. But I think what happened in Darjeeling Kalimpong case is because actually, see, Kalimpong was a part of the Silk Route. But it must have been a really small place. I think there was just like one ground or something where a market would happen once in a few months. People would gather and this thing. But then Darjeeling was complete forest land. There were some local tribes living, I think. But then when the Britishers found the place, they cut up the forest and they started setting up these different plantations, right? Like tea, oranges, peaches, floriculture, horticulture. In fact, in 1992 or 1994, before the Central Silk Board in Bangalore was set up, there was a team that was sent to Kalimpong, to the horticulture department, and that is the horticulture system that was brought to Bangalore and before the Central Silk Board was set up. Because I think that was what the Britishers had set up mainly as the plantation region for these things over there. So working in these plantations, there was, I think, a mass immigration that happened. Because I think Nepalis were walking through those areas and migrating, and people were setting up. Nepalis were basically agrarian migrators. Like you would go and set up agriculture throughout the entire region. So I think if you really trace it, the movement of agriculture has happened through the same migration, through the Nepalis moving. Because I think Nepal, because of the Indian contact with the Indus Plains, I think agriculture had come. So it moved east and north towards Tibet. So I think during that time, since the Britishers took it, the migration influx kind of really boomed, I think. And then, and since everybody was just plantation workers, I think they didn't care for like what caste and what tribe and what clan you really are. Because they used to have these huge labor camps called Kulli Dhura, Gadi Dhura, we call it. Dhuri meaning camp, like a shed. So I think since people were living under
all got mixed up.
A lot of languages got mixed up. Yeah. Nepali became like this. Nepali kind of developed what I talk.
Which would be like an everyday.
In our place, yeah. But then I think what happened is like influences of languages happened. The accents have changed. So it's kind of become like it's a Nepali of its own. It's very distinct to the Nepali used in Nepal or in Assam otherwise. And I think it is. There was also a lot of cross marriages, and in our place, I think you won't find a pure blood of any sort, actually. It's highly rare. I have never met anybody who's, just pure. They haven't intermarried into any other community. So that way language also has changed. So I use this language only, and I try and write in as colloquial as I can, as simple as possible.
Can you sing us something from the upcoming album, which is maybe closest to your state of mind right now? You mentioned a little bit earlier that currently in Teesta there is again kind of a natural disaster happening, and I'm guessing it's difficult to also be away, and also be writing about a place that's distant and yet close. So I don't know, I'm just wondering what is your state of mind right now, and if you can share a song with us that speaks to that.
I told you about the song with the golden bird and the black snake. I mean, see, actually, I've written a lot of songs about the same thing, but then if I have to say it for right now, immediately for what is happening, I would say it's the snake and the bird song, because I think the snake thing actually comes from I must be honest and share that the inspiration for the story comes from a lot of folk literature and oral tradition. I mean, it's not based on it, but it's inspired by that. Because because we are in the Himalayan region, right? And then the Himalayan birds ecology is like a thing. So throughout, historically, birds have been quite a symbol for us. Like, because it represents, I think, our land and our scape, and from everything, from the insects to berries to flowers, everything is controlled by the birds. And then seasonal changes we recognize looking at birds. So even if you look at all the Gandharva songs, or even any love song, lovers, everything is birds. And then the snakes, because I think predominantly, before everybody got converted either to Hinduism or Christianity or Buddhism, Lamaism, I must correct, Buddhism, Lamaism, or like Islam, I think everybody there we used to have like shamans. We still have those cultures, like, pagan cultures, in which I think snakes were really major gods, because I think at some level they are also apex predators. So I got the idea of these characters of the bird like that, and the snake also from this kind of oral tradition, where this one particular story that I excavated in one of my research projects, in which once the Britishers started coming in and the land laws shifted, like that was my research actually. So when the Britishers came and the land laws were shifting, I think because of the local politics of the land, apparently one shaman, instead of doing good magic, did black magic that day. And then there is a story about two snakes, one white and black, in which the white takes milk and sweets and the black takes alcohol and meat. And so then this shaman, who had some land politics going on, took the landlord and made him do ulta for it. So the landlord gave alcohol and meat to the white snake and milk and sweets to the black snake, pissing them off. So that landlord came back home, and apparently within an hour of that ceremony happening, he started bleeding from his eyes, ears, nose, from his pores of his skin, and blood curdled and died. Like a cobra bite. Like when cobra bites you, that's what happens. And so then I think because of that, the people in the village, their entire thing, they got scared of the snakes, of those gods, and they stopped worshipping it. Years passed. This must have been in 1960s at least, right? So then now they've forgotten about it. The people who originally inhabitants who used to live there, they've died, they've gone. Somebody else has come to possess that particular land where the snake used to live. And in 2014, once these dams and all are being built, then again what happened was the person now today who owns that land, his daughter one day in the evening woke up and started hissing like a snake, moving like a snake, and she stepped out of the house and started climbing rocks and whatever. So basically she got possessed by that same snake, which people had forgotten about. And this snake, when it came back as an angry god. Once the snake took possession of this girl, the snake seemed to be angry about how people have forgotten, how people have been abusing, how those rituals are made. So it's pissed off with generally everything that's going around. And then the snake was saying that Hindu, Muslim chutaudina, Christian chutaudina, sablai lanchu. Meaning that I won't discriminate. Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, I won't discriminate. Everybody I will take and go. Right? Everybody will die. So I think... so the snake in your song is this angry snake? No. So inspired from these characters, in my song, the snake is a debt collector. And the golden bird is the person in the field. Right? So I'll sing you the song. सुनचरी मन पनि घुम्ने उसको बानी घरमाथि च्यानबारी भेट्न जान्छ साथी
साथी दिन भरि फिटी फिटी सुक्यो क्वामा पानी वरपरिको सुनबारी पर्यो बेकारी खाजा खाइयाङ कानी दिउँ सै सुत्ने बानी सुनचरीको मन छ भारी काग बेहुली चरी हार मानी मजदुरी गर्नु रोजी रोटी यसरी सुनझरीलाई पर्यो गरिबी बाटोमाथि बस्ने त्यो कालो साँप भुर्नेको रातमा हल्लारी चालमा आँगनमै मान्छ कसी बेसमारी.
As I stood watching the bulldozers eat away at the silver sand beaches below me, I felt quite helpless. I wondered if it's possible to always save what we love. But then I remembered the characters from Gauley Bhai's songs. I could feel Teesta's anger when she was separated from her lover Rangeet. I could sense the strength of the golden bird who lived on the plantation. Gauley Bhai's conviction filled me with a responsibility to share what I had heard, so that the story of the golden bird is never forgotten.
Adventures of Noorie is a podcast series tracing her travels with music, memory, and identity. Noorie's adventures move like this from place to place, discovering musicians and their stories that she never heard before. This is the music of people who recall their lives through rhythms, instruments, and polyphones. Stay tuned for her next stop.